I was talking with Steve this morning, and he said that wearing this boot is going to get me through the airport faster. And I said, well, it might get me through communion. I'll be the first in line for communion. How about that? So do you all have certain movies in your life where you are just kind of sitting there and they come on and you just have to watch it? Like you've seen A Hunt for Red October a million times, but when it comes on, you think to yourself, 1,000,001 wouldn't hurt. I have a few of those, and Teresa knows this. God, Field of Dreams comes on, bam, we're not going out that night. It's ridiculous. And God help us all if The Shawshank Redemption comes on. I'm sure you have memories that wash over you too, ones that come back again and again like waves. Some good, probably some that you'd rather forget. These memories may go out with the tide, but they'll come back again, whether you want them to or not. A favorite poet of mine once said that memory is a kind of landscape. He wrote, "Blessed be the gifts you never notice. Blessed be your health, eyes to behold the world, thoughts to countenance the unknown, memory to harvest vanished days, your heart to feel the world's waves, your breath to breathe the nourishment of distance made intimate by earth." Memory is a bridge. And of course, there are the songs that we love. Yes, the songs that we know deep down. And I know that you all know this because if it's one thing that I've encountered here at St. Luke's, it's a deep and abiding appreciation of music. Music is what language would love to be if it could. And we see this at work in our lives. Do you all have that friend that can remember all the lyrics to a song but have no idea who the artist is? Or vice versa, who they know the artist but don't know any of the lyrics? Something is actualized in our brains. Something is actualized in us when a lyric finds home. And perhaps that is why music is so very personal. Psalms were like that for the Hebrew people. Personal, intimate, emotional, and raw. Folks have tried to categorize them over the years, but it's the stanzas, these lyrics set to music, this hope that's embedded in prayer, lament that's covered in truth, that we've come to know the best. And I know that you know these folks that I love them because they expand my understanding all the time. That they know the artist of the song. They can tell you about the artist all day long and say, well, that's actually a cover of so-and-so. That's not new. Really influenced by this person. I'm trying to channel that friend of mine today. I may be reaching here, so stop me if I am, but as I was praying the psalm this week, I began to think of another song that's in our tradition. You know the one. Long after the Psalms of David reached the top of the charts, there was this young woman named Mary who went to visit her cousin Elizabeth, and nothing passed between them except joy that day. Through the ages, that song has become known as the Magnificat, and we heard a rendition of that, a remix, if you will, this morning as we processed in. But I want you to listen to the parallels between the Magnificat and the Psalm this morning, Psalm 111. And the psalmist says, "Great are the deeds of the Lord." From the Magnificat it says, "My soul proclaims his greatness. The Almighty has done great things for me." From the Psalm it says, "He has shown the power of his works." From the Magnificat it says, "He has shown the strength of his arm." From the Psalm, "He gives food to those who fear him." And from the Magnificat, "He has filled the hungry with good things." You know, it's not a direct analog, but no one can doubt the influence. And you know what? I don't think that Mary sang that song just one time. I think it was a song that Jesus heard a lot when he was growing up. Especially that part about lifting up the lowly and exalting the humble and the meek. For doesn't he say elsewhere that ultimately it's the meek that shall inherit the earth? But that's Jesus, isn't it? Always providing the remix. And we all know folks that connect to the remix on a more personal level than they do the original cut. Don't hate me, but I love James Taylor's version of "You Got a Friend" more than I like Carole King's. Okay? And that's okay because it's a remix that speaks to me today. That line where the psalmist says, "He has filled the hungry with good things," reminds me of a story. It was customary in the parish that I grew up in for the kids at the end of the service to line the center aisle and wait for the priest to process down so that we could grab his hand on the way out. And the parents, well, they loved this. And we loved it too, because that meant that we were the first out the door. One particular Sunday, I was determined to be the first. It was a day that would change my life. The closing hymn began to play. I got in position, and just like I planned, Father Mike just walked down the aisle. I grabbed his hand. I could taste the cookies. Oh, I was going to be out first. It was happening. We processed out, and we took our position in the entryway to wait for folks as they would come out. And that's when the door opened. In walked a man who had spent more than one night on a street. He was wet, was cold outside. He had this yellow jacket that was stuffed with newspaper, and the newspaper was coming out the holes in his sleeves. He had long, gray, greasy hair, and these boots that were just really too big for him, boots that carried his limp. And Father Mike, that was still vested in his chasuble, asked the man what he wanted. He said that he was so hungry that all he wanted, mind you, he would be no trouble. All he wanted was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Father Mike, he opened wide his arms and embraced the man. He looked at me and told me to wait for my dad as he would be coming up from the back of the church as he led the man down the kitchen. Well, it took me about 3 seconds to realize that I was going to disobey that order. I inched down the hallway. The kitchen was on the right, to find Father Mike, still vested, mind you, making this man a sandwich. He finished it, set it down in front of the man, and then sat down beside him. There's only been one more time in my life that I've seen someone as hungry as this man. He didn't eat the sandwich as much as he inhaled it, smushed it against his face, without a thought, tears just streaming down his face into the bread. was in that moment that I realized that it wasn't just his stomach that was hungry. It was his soul, too. It was his heart. It was his skin, just wanting to be touched. Touched by kindness. And in that moment, Father Mike put his hand on the back of the man's head. And he wept too. I want to say that was the day I knew I wanted to be a priest. But I wasn't there yet. I knew this man would eat and take his leave. But you know what? I saw the work. That was the day I learned what compassion looks like. What compassion looks like with arms wide open. All I really know is that day I saw how through touch, the demon of sadness left that man. And that said something to me. Do the work. Do the good work that's right in front of you. Don't worry about anything else. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work. But neither are we free to abandon it.